NBA free agency is just 2 days away, so let's look at some of the biggest names in the market and predict where they're going to end up. Welcome everybody to Amateur Hour TV, the second channel in the Amateur Hour production network, where we go through additional NBA content just like this. Drop a like if you enjoy and subscribe for more content as we go through the offseason. But we're going to look at the 10 biggest names as we're heading into the NBA free agency. If you don't know, it starts June 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern time. That is when teams are, quote, allowed to talk to players and negotiate with players as far as contracts go. Typically, we see contracts agreed to at 6:01 on Friday, so kind of quickly. But obviously, teams talk to players in advance in secret, and we get the reveals of where teams and where players are going to have their verbal agreements to sign on Friday. So we could see some superstar names on new teams. So let's get right into the video and talk about where these players are going to end up. So I've selected the 10 players that I think are the biggest names on the list. There could be a player that I missed, and I apologize for that, but I can't talk about everybody. Let's get right into it. First name on the list is Kyrie Irving. Now, obviously with Kyrie Irving, there comes a lot of baggage, and there comes worries that, at a certain point during the season, he could just decide he doesn't really feel like playing anymore, and he'll just stop playing. So not a ton of teams are going to be throwing money at Kyrie Irving. Certainly the Lakers will be one of them. Certainly the Dallas Mavericks will be one of them. But given cap space situations, given the amount invested into the player, I still feel like the Dallas Mavericks are going to find a way to bring him back. They're going to avoid the disaster situation where they trade away all those good assets. They get him at the trade deadline, then he walks for free. I could still see him going anywhere. Trying to get in the mind of Kyrie Irving is scary. I don't even want to think about what Kyrie Irving is thinking right now, but ultimately, I do think he will stay with the Dallas Mavericks. I do not feel confident at all in that prediction, but not many teams, again, are be throwing money at him. I think Dallas, trying to avoid looking bad, will give him the money he wants, and he will stay in Dallas to play alongside Luka Doncic, and they need to figure out how to play together. Second player I have on the list is James Harden. So there's a lot of conversations about him ending up somewhere else, but the difference for him is that there's really only two likely landing spots, and that is the 76ers or the Houston Rockets. It kind of feels like the way Ime Udoka is describing free agents that he wants, it kind of feels like James Harden doesn't quite fit that. And I think ultimately Daryl Morey and the 76ers will do enough to keep him, will do enough to find ways to make room for him financially. And James Harden's relationship with Daryl Morey is very good. So I think ultimately the 76ers do enough to keep James Harden and avoid that situation with having to replace him. I know, not very fun so far. Russell Westbrook is the next name on this list. Not the player that he used to be, and finally off that big contract. So the expectation associated with that contract is no longer there. I think that's good for Russell Westbrook playing on that $40 million contract. You're expected to be a $40 million player, but now he can sign a much lower deal. They can get better players around him, and a team that needs a point guard right now, and they got a good experience with him. Again, we're going to be boring and say that the Los Angeles Clippers, I think they will keep Russell Westbrook on their team. He just showed that he can be that guy for them where, hey, if he needs the ball in his hands because guys are injured, he can take over some stuff. But if he has to play a more subdued role, he can also do that. We'll see how it looks for a full season. We'll see how it looks when he's playing next to both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. But I think the Clippers, they're in such desperate need of a point guard that you may as well keep a hold of him. And obviously, not going to be making that same sort of money. The Clippers were never paying him that money, but I think they will be happy to give him a contract here and keep him on the team to help keep the team competitive. Next player on the list is Chris Middleton. He's going to get a big payday here. And, the Bucks won their championship, but they're looking to run it back. They're looking to make up for this failure of a season. Giannis is lying. This season was a failure. You lost in the first round. You were the championship favorite, and you lost in the first round in 5 games. That's a failure. Sorry, it is. Enough of this loser mentality. Chris Middleton's a big part of their team. As much as he had injury troubles, the Bucks are going to give him the money, and I think Middleton would want to stay with Milwaukee, the team that drafted him. I believe they drafted him late second round or in the second round. They drafted him, I believe. They developed him for sure and got him to this point where he is such a expensive player. I think the Milwaukee Bucks will figure out a way to keep him. So not a lot of shuffling here. I think one of the players more likely to shuffle in free agency is Raptors point guard Fred VanVleet. There's been a lot of conversations about exactly where he's going to end up. But right now, it looks like a two-horse race between the Raptors and the Rockets. The Rockets seem to be more enticed by throwing Fred VanVleet a 2-year offer worth $70 or $80 million, whereas the Raptors are more looking towards a 3-year, $90 million contract. I think Fred has a hunger to be competitive. As much as the Raptors likely won't be very competitive, they will be somewhat competitive, but as much as they won't be the most competitive team, I don't think a ton of teams are throwing money at Fred VanVleet. And I think at the end of the day, Masai Ujiri gets this done and keeps Fred VanVleet in Toronto. For better or worse for the Raptors fan base, I just feel like Fred VanVleet is going to stay. I'd be a little bit surprised to see him go to a different team. Not crazy surprised, but I'm leaning 60-40 on Fred VanVleet staying in Toronto. That brings us to Draymond Green. He is a free agent as well. You know, Jordan Poole's not there, so he doesn't have to punch anybody this summer, but this guy lives and breathes Golden State. Golden State and Draymond Green, they go together so well. It's synonymous. I mean, I can't even speculate here. He's supposed to meet Damian Lillard for lunch or something, or a dinner somewhere in Portland, but, I mean, come on. Draymond Green ain't going anywhere. I'd be so shocked to see him end up somewhere else. Next player on the list is Kyle Kuzma. I promise we can have a new team for this one. I did not know he had a 100 emoji tattoo. That's just horrible, but not surprising that Kyle Kuzma has that. But Kuzma's a good player. Kuzma gets disrespected too much, and I think it was very good for him to get to a new team to spread his wings a little bit more. He's probably got wings. I was looking for a wing tattoo somewhere. He's probably got wings somewhere on his body, but it was nice to see him really develop as a scorer, and he's a very viable third or fourth guy in your starting lineup. And the Lakers are a team that when they lost him, the team fell off a little bit. They lost a few pieces, but he was an important part of their team. And he can space the floor. He can alleviate scoring pressure off some of the bigger guys in the team, the more important guys in the team. And he's a smart player. I like Kyle Kuzma's game a lot. I'd like him on the Raptors. We don't have space for him. I'd really like him on the Sacramento Kings, but I think that, if he can get over the trade, I think the Lakers are the team that brings him back. I think the Lakers, I know the Lakers have cap space, and Kuzma would fit really well in between LeBron and AD, playing as the 4. You have AD as the 5, Kuzma as the 4, LeBron as the 3. You tell AD to fucking suck it up and you tell AD to suck it up and play as the center. The team is better when you're the center, AD. You're not a power forward anymore. Welcome to 2023. Tough shit. You're the center. Kuzma's the 4. LeBron's the 3. Reeves at the 2. Get a point guard. That team's going to be competitive once again. I like this fit a lot. Jakob Poeltl, he wants to be on a competitive team. As I said with VanVleet, I think the Raptors are going to try to be competitive. All signs point towards Poeltl wanting to stay and Raptors wanting to make it happen. Jakob Poeltl, I think, will stay in Toronto. Nikola Vucevic, at the time of the recording, just agreed to a deal of 3 years, $60 million to stay with the Chicago Bulls. We can have a whole conversation about what the Bulls are doing, but 3 years, $60 million, that's probably about what Poeltl's agent is happy to see. Poeltl's going to land around the $20 million mark. The Raptors are going to give it to him. Next and final on this list is Brook Lopez. The Milwaukee Bucks, they've built something good here. They've built a good team. Brook Lopez is a big part of this team. Excellent defender, excellent shooter, great center to have. He fits really well with the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't see any reason for either of the parties to break this up. He stays with the Milwaukee Bucks. Oh, and one more player on this list as well, DAngelo Russell. This is the biggest wild card that I have here. I truly am not a big fan of DAngelo Russell's game. You can't have him on the floor in the playoffs. The Lakers had to bench him in the playoffs. They could not have him on the floor. I honestly think that Denver's series goes differently if they just had not played DAngelo Russell any minutes. He gave them nothing. He gave them no offense, gave them no playmaking, no threat with the ball in his hands, and he's horrible defensively. I think he's better than he showed there. Didn't fit with the Lakers very well, but man, here's a guy you struggle to play in the playoffs. I don't think a ton of teams have a ton of interest. I'm not sure he cracks $20 million average, but a team that needs some talent and needs a guy who maybe wants to score the ball a little bit more, why not the Spurs? They're going to have the money to do it. Why not give Victor Wembanyama a better team in the first year? Give DAngelo Russell a 3-year contract, see where it takes you, make sure it's a tradable amount, and you know what? Why not? I think Charlotte could have an interest, but I think Spurs. I think the Spurs, not confident at all in this prediction, but I think the Spurs are the team that give him the opportunity to find something and get some more playing time for next season. I think DAngelo Russell could use that. He's not suitable for a contender, but hey, come to the Spurs and do what you want. Have some fun. That makes sense. So that is it for this one. Where do you guys think these stars are going to end up? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Around my head right now, the other 3 channels in the Amateur Hour Production Network: Amateur Hour Sports, my main channel for Raptors content; Amateur Hour Reaction, my highlights channel for my streams that I do on Amateur Hour Sports; and Amateur Hour Bets. Sometimes I post there for educational sports betting content. I will see you guys again. I think tomorrow I'll have a video, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you again very, very soon.